A stray dog wandered alone on a cold night when he heard a faint cry coming from a trash can. Upon investigating, he discovered an abandoned newborn baby. Determined, he carefully picked up the child and ran to a nearby ambulance, leaving the paramedics frightened. But when they discovered the reason later, everyone was completely shocked. The crisp autumn air whispered through the tree-lined streets of Oak Brook, a quaint suburb just outside Chicago. As dusk settled over the town, streetlights flickered to life, casting a warm glow on the historic brownstone buildings and well-manicured lawns. Oak Brook Park, the heart of the community, stood silent and serene, its playground equipment casting long shadows across the neatly trimmed grass. In the distance, the hum of the city provided a constant backdrop, a reminder of the bustling metropolis beyond this peaceful enclave. The park's winding paths, usually bustling with joggers and dog walkers, now lay empty, save for the occasional rustle of leaves dancing in the cool evening breeze. Near the park's entrance, a solitary ambulance sat parked, its red and white exterior gleaming under the streetlights. Inside, paramedics enjoyed a brief respite from their demanding shift, unaware of the extraordinary events about to unfold in this tranquil corner of suburbia. As night descended, a subtle shift in the atmosphere hinted at the approaching autumn chill. The air carried the faint scent of wood smoke from nearby chimneys, mingling with the earthy aroma of fallen leaves. This idyllic scene, however, belied the hidden struggles of those living on the fringes of society, their stories often overlooked in the seemingly perfect tableau of suburban life. It was in this setting that an unlikely hero would emerge, a creature who had long been a fixture in Oak Brook's landscape, yet whose true worth was yet to be fully appreciated by the community he called home. At the heart of our story is Toby, an aging Australian shepherd with a coat of mottled blue and white, weathered by years on the streets of Oak Brook. His intelligent eyes, one blue and one brown, told a tale of resilience and unwavering spirit. Despite the hardships of his life, Toby's gait maintained a hint of the grace that once made him a prized herding dog. His fur, though slightly matted, still held a sheen that spoke of his inherent dignity. Toby had become a familiar sight in Oak Brook, known for his gentle demeanor and uncanny ability to navigate the suburban landscape. Residents often spotted him trotting along sidewalks or resting in quiet corners of the park, always keeping a respectful distance from humans while quietly observing their comings and goings. His presence was a testament to his adaptability and the subtle bond he had formed with the community, even if from afar. In stark contrast to Toby's solitary existence were the paramedics stationed near Oak Brook Park. Among them was Sarah Thompson, a compassionate woman in her mid-30s, with auburn hair often pulled back in a practical ponytail. Her warm brown eyes conveyed a depth of experience, having seen both the fragility and resilience of human life in her years of service. Sarah's calm demeanor belied a sharp mind always ready for the next emergency. Alongside Sarah was her partner, Mike Donovan, a seasoned paramedic with salt and pepper hair and a sturdy build that spoke of his firefighting background. Mike's face, etched with laugh lines, reflected both the joy and sorrow he'd witnessed in his career. His booming laugh and quick wit often lightened the mood during tense situations, making him a favorite among his colleagues. The third crucial character in our tale had yet to make her presence known. Lily, a fragile newborn with wispy blonde hair and eyes as blue as a summer sky, lay swaddled in a thin blanket, abandoned in a trash can at the park. Her tiny form, barely visible in the dim light, quivered with each soft whimper, a silent plea for help that would soon be answered in the most unexpected way. In the background of our story, the community of Oak Brook itself played a vital role. From Margaret Wilson, a retired nurse living in a cozy bungalow near the park, to the young couple jogging past the ambulance, each resident represented the interconnected web of lives that would soon be touched by the night's events. The town, with its mix of long-time residents and newcomers, embodied the changing face of suburban America, a place where tradition and progress often walked hand in hand. As the evening deepened, these disparate lives were poised to intersect in a moment that would challenge perceptions, restore faith, and remind everyone of the extraordinary potential for heroism in the most unlikely of places. Following his keen instincts, Toby trotted towards the source of the sound, his paws crunching softly on fallen leaves. As he approached a cluster of trash cans near the park's edge, the cry grew louder. With gentle persistence, he nosed around the area until he discovered its origin, a small bundle tucked away in one of the cans. Toby's nose twitched as he caught the scent of something distinctly human. Carefully, he gripped the edge of the blanket with his teeth and pulled, revealing the tiny, squirming form of baby Lily. Her cries grew stronger in the cool night air, triggering a protective instinct deep within Toby's canine heart. Without hesitation, Toby delicately took the bundle in his mouth, cradling it as gently as he would have carried a puppy. With newfound purpose, he turned and began to trot towards the only beacon of hope he could see, the parked ambulance glowing under the streetlights. As Toby approached the ambulance, his heart racing with a mixture of determination and anxiety, Sarah Thompson was just stepping out of the vehicle for a breath of fresh air. Her eyes widened in disbelief at the sight before her. A dog, clearly a stray, carefully carrying what appeared to be a bundle of cloth in its mouth. Mike Donovan appeared at her side, his jovial expression quickly morphing into one of shock as he took in the scene. Is that what I think it is?" he muttered, already moving towards Toby. Sarah knelt down, her voice soft and soothing as she addressed Toby. "It's okay, boy. You're safe. Can I see what you got there?" As Sarah scooped up Lily, cradling her close to share body heat, she couldn't help but marvel at Toby's actions. The dog sat nearby, his eyes never leaving the baby, a quiet whine escaping his throat. Inside the ambulance, Mike and Sarah worked in perfect sync, their years of partnership evident in their wordless communication. As Mike gently examined Lily, checking her vitals and wrapping her in a thermal blanket, Sarah radioed dispatch, her voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through her veins. As they tended to Lily, both paramedics found their gazes continually drawn to Toby, who had positioned himself just outside the ambulance doors, maintaining a vigilant watch. The dog's unwavering dedication stirred something deep within Mike, reminding him of why he'd chosen this profession in the first place. "You know, Sarah," Mike said softly, his usual joviality replaced by a tone of wonder, "in all my years on the job, I've never seen anything quite like this. That dog, he's something special." As they spoke, Lily began to stir, her tiny fingers grasping at the air. Sarah reached out, allowing the baby to grip her finger. The simple action brought a lump to her throat, the reality of what could have happened hitting her full force. Outside, the sound of approaching sirens filled the air. Toby's ears perked up, but he remained steadfast in his position. As police cars pulled up and curious onlookers began to gather, drawn by the commotion, Toby's presence seemed to anchor the scene, a silent reminder of the extraordinary events that had just unfolded. As the initial shock of the discovery subsided, the reality of the situation began to set in, bringing with it a host of challenges. Detective Lisa Hartley, a no-nonsense woman with short-cropped grey hair, arrived on the scene, her sharp eyes taking in every detail. Sarah quickly briefed the detective, her words punctuated by the soft whimpers of baby Lily from inside the ambulance. As she spoke, Toby edged closer to Sarah, as if seeking reassurance in the face of the growing crowd and flashing lights. Mike, overhearing the conversation, stepped in. "With all due respect, Detective, that dog is the reason this baby is alive. He's not a complication, he's a key witness." As the tension mounted, a new challenge emerged. A young social worker, fresh-faced and clutching a clipboard, approached the group. "I'm here for the child," she announced, her voice wavering slightly under the weight of the situation. Meanwhile, the growing crowd of onlookers posed its own set of problems. Smartphones were out, recording the scene, and murmurs rippled through the gathering. Is that the stray dog everyone's been talking about? Did it really save a baby? Oddly pinched the bridge of her nose, feeling a headache coming on. Great, just what we need, a media circus. As the animal control officer stepped out, net in hand, the situation threatened to escalate. Sarah and Mike exchanged worried glances, knowing that the next few moments could determine not just Toby's fate, but the course of the entire investigation. "Wait," she said firmly. "This dog is crucial to our investigation. He can't be taken away." Detective Hartley intervened, her voice cutting through the tension. "Let's all take a breath here. Officer," she addressed Carl, "I'm declaring this dog evidence in an ongoing investigation. He stays, for now." As if in response, Toby sat down firmly next to Sarah, his posture making it clear he had no intention of leaving. This steadfast loyalty only endeared him further to the growing crowd, complicating matters for law enforcement trying to maintain order. "She might be hungry," Sarah said, climbing into the ambulance. "We need to get her to the hospital now." Officer Johnson approached again, looking even more harried. "Detective, we've got people calling the station non-stop. Everyone wants to know about the hero dog and the baby. And," he lowered his voice, "there's chatter online about the baby's parents. Some pretty ugly stuff." As if the situation wasn't complex enough, Margaret Wilson, the retired nurse from the neighborhood, pushed her way through the crowd. "I know that dog," she called out. "He belonged to old Mr. Peterson before he passed. His name is Toby." Detective Hartley sighed, realizing that every answer seemed to bring two new questions. The night was far from over, and the challenges were only mounting. With a baby in need of care, a canine hero to protect, a community in uproar, and a sensitive investigation to conduct, the path forward was anything but clear. Sarah, her paramedic instincts in full gear, made an executive decision. "We can't wait any longer," she announced, her voice firm. "Mike, we're taking Lily to the hospital now. Detective Hartley, you'll have to meet us there for further questions." In a moment of compassion that surprised even herself, Sarah turned to Detective Hartley. "The dog comes with us," she stated, leaving no room for argument. "He found her. He should stay with her." As the ambulance prepared to depart, Margaret Wilson stepped forward again. "I'll look after Toby once you're done at the hospital," she offered. "I knew him when Mr. Peterson was alive. He'll be safe with me." Detective Hartley then turned her attention to the media circus forming around them. With a deep breath, she approached the news vans, knowing that controlling the narrative was crucial at this stage. As the ambulance sped towards the hospital, the scene inside was a flurry of activity. Mike focused on monitoring Lily's vital signs, while Sarah divided her attention between the baby and Toby, who sat quietly in the corner, his eyes never leaving the tiny bundle. At the hospital, the emergency room staff had been alerted and were waiting. Dr. Emily Chen, the pediatrician on call, quickly took charge of Lily's care. "Let's get her to NICU for a full workup," she ordered, her calm efficiency a balm to the tense atmosphere. It was Dr. Chen who provided an unexpected solution. "I've read about animal-assisted therapy in neonatal care," she said thoughtfully. "If we can get quick approval, maybe we can make an exception for our canine hero." Meanwhile, the story had exploded on social media. Oakbrook Hero Dog was trending, with thousands sharing the story and offering support. Local businesses began organizing efforts to help, from donations for Lily's care to offers of assistance in finding her parents. Margaret Wilson, true to her word, had opened her home to a stream of concerned neighbors, all eager to help in any way they could. "We're a community," she told them, her voice strong despite her years. "And right now, that little girl and this brave dog need our community more than ever." As night deepened into early morning, the actions taken by each individual, from the paramedics and police to the medical staff and community members, began to weave together, forming a safety net of care and concern around Lily and Toby. The challenges were far from over, but a sense of united purpose had emerged, driven by the extraordinary events of the night. As dawn broke over Oakbrook, the hospital corridors buzzed with activity. Dr. Chen emerged from the NICU, her face a mixture of concern and determination. She approached Sarah, Mike, and Detective Hartley, who had been anxiously waiting for news. The news hit like a thunderbolt. Detective Hartley's expression hardened. This changes things. We're not just looking for parents now, we're looking at potential child endangerment charges. The tension in the room ratcheted up several notches. Sarah and Mike exchanged worried glances, their thoughts immediately going to baby Lily. As Hartley left, a commotion erupted down the hall. A hospital administrator, red-faced and flustered, was arguing with a nurse outside the NICU. "Policy is clear. No animals allowed in the hospital, especially not in the NICU." Mike stepped forward, his usual jovial demeanor replaced by fierce determination. "That dog saved Lily's life. You can't just throw him out." The standoff was interrupted by a sudden alarm from the NICU. Dr. Chen's eyes widened in alarm. "It's Lily!" she gasped, rushing back into the unit. In the chaos of the moment, with medical staff rushing around and alarms blaring, no one noticed as Toby wriggled free from Sarah's arms. With surprising agility for his age, he made his way to Lily's incubator, pressing his nose against the clear plastic. "This is incredible," she breathed, her eyes darting between the monitors and Toby. "Her heart rate is normalizing. Oxygen levels are improving." Before anyone could respond, Officer Johnson's radio crackled to life. "All units, be advised. Suspect in baby abandonment case spotted fleeing Mercy General, heading towards Oakbrook Park. Approach with caution. Suspect is believed to be armed." As if understanding the gravity of the situation, Toby's ears perked up at the mention of Margaret's name. He looked between Lily and the humans, seeming torn. Outside the hospital, Detective Hartley was racing back towards Oakbrook Park, her mind racing. The suspect, now identified as Lily's mother, Jessica Torres, had fled the hospital in a panic after overhearing police inquiries. Reports suggested she was armed and potentially still under the influence of drugs. Jessica spun around, her eyes wild with fear and confusion. In her hand glinted a small pistol. "Stay back!" she screamed, her voice hoarse. "You don't understand. I never meant to hurt her." Back at the hospital, Sarah and Mike were torn between their duty to Lily and their concern for Margaret and the ongoing situation at the park. Toby, sensing the tension, began to grow restless, whining softly and looking towards the door. Dr. Chen, monitoring Lily closely, noticed the baby beginning to stir again as Toby's attention wavered. "We're at a crossroads," she said gravely. "Lily needs Toby, but it's clear he senses something is wrong elsewhere. Whatever we decide, we need to decide quickly." The air was thick with tension as all eyes turned to Sarah, silently acknowledging her as the one who had brought them all together. The decision she would make in the next few moments could have far-reaching consequences for everyone involved. Dr. Chen's eyes widened. "Wait," she said, a realization dawning. "I think Toby wants to go with you, and I think he should." Sarah hesitated, torn between the need at the park and Lily's well-being. It was the hospital administrator who surprisingly spoke up. "Go," he said, his earlier stubbornness replaced by a look of wonder. "We'll watch over the baby. This dog, Toby, he's proven to be more than just an animal. If he thinks he's needed there, then that's where he should be." At Oakbrook Park, the standoff continued. Jessica, her hand shaking as she pointed the gun, was becoming increasingly agitated. "You don't understand," she cried out to Detective Hartley. "I was trying to protect her." Jessica's eyes darted between Margaret and Detective Hartley, tears streaming down her face. I was in an abusive relationship," she began, her voice barely above a whisper. "When I found out I was pregnant, I knew I had to get out. But he found me, threatened to take the baby." As Jessica's story unfolded, Sarah arrived at the park with Toby. The dog immediately tensed, his eyes fixed on Jessica. But instead of growling or showing aggression, Toby's demeanor changed. He whined softly, his tail wagging slowly, as if he sensed Jessica's distress. Jessica, startled by Toby's approach, lowered her gun slightly. That's the dog that found my baby, isn't it?" she asked, her voice trembling. As if understanding Sarah's words, Toby sat down in front of Jessica, looking up at her with soulful eyes. The simple act seemed to break something inside Jessica. She fell to her knees, the gun clattering to the ground as she wrapped her arms around Toby, sobbing into his fur. As Jessica's story poured out, a shocking revelation emerged. Her abusive ex-partner was a local police officer, which had made Jessica terrified of seeking help through official channels. She had been living in fear, convinced that giving up her baby was the only way to keep her safe from his reach. Margaret, who had been listening intently, stepped forward. "My dear," she said, placing a comforting hand on Jessica's shoulder, "you're not alone anymore. This community, all of us here, will stand with you and your little girl." Sarah, watching Toby comfort Jessica, felt a surge of emotion. This dog, once seen as just a stray, had not only saved a baby's life, but had now played a crucial role in uncovering a deeper injustice and bringing healing to a broken situation. In the days that followed the dramatic events at Oakbrook Park, the community rallied around Jessica and baby Lily with unprecedented support. Detective Hartley, true to her word, launched a full investigation into Jessica's claims about her abusive ex-partner. The investigation uncovered a pattern of domestic abuse and corruption that sent shockwaves through the local police department. Jessica's ex-partner was arrested, and several other officers were suspended pending further inquiry. The case sparked a broader conversation about police accountability and support for domestic violence survivors. At the hospital, Lily continued to thrive under the watchful eyes of Dr. Chen and her team. Toby became a regular visitor, his presence not only comforting Lily, but also bringing smiles to the faces of other patients and staff. The hospital board, impressed by the positive impact, officially approved a pilot program for animal-assisted therapy in the NICU, with Toby as its first canine participant. Jessica, with the support of social services and the community, began the challenging journey of recovery and reconnection with her daughter. Sarah and Mike, deeply moved by the entire experience, became her steadfast allies, helping her navigate the complex emotions and practical challenges of new motherhood under such extraordinary circumstances. Margaret Wilson opened her home to Jessica and Lily, providing a safe haven as they began to rebuild their lives. Her quiet strength and unwavering support became a cornerstone of Jessica's healing process. As the dust settled, the Oakbrook community found itself transformed by the events that had unfolded. The story of Toby, the heroic stray dog, and baby Lily captured hearts nationwide, prompting discussions about animal welfare and the potential for animals to play crucial roles in emergency situations. Local animal shelters reported a surge in adoptions, with many families inspired by Toby's story to open their homes to rescue animals. The Oakbrook City Council, recognizing the impact of Toby's actions, passed a resolution to improve funding for animal welfare programs and to explore partnerships between emergency services and animal rescue organizations. For Toby himself, life changed dramatically. No longer a lonely stray, he found himself at the center of a loving network of caregivers. While he continued his visits to the hospital to see Lily, he split his time between Margaret's home and the fire station where Mike worked. The firefighters, touched by Toby's heroism, adopted him as their unofficial mascot and therapy dog. Jessica, with ongoing counseling and support, made remarkable progress in her recovery. She enrolled in classes at the local community college, determined to build a better future for herself and Lily. The charges related to abandoning Lily were dropped, with the court recognizing the extreme circumstances and the steps Jessica had taken to turn her life around. Detective Hartley, profoundly affected by the case, became an advocate for better training in domestic violence response within the police force. She worked closely with social services to develop new protocols for handling cases involving vulnerable mothers and children. As winter turned to spring, the park where Lily had been found was transformed into a symbol of hope and community spirit. A small garden was planted in honor of Toby's heroic act, serving as a reminder of the extraordinary chain of events that had brought so many people together. On a warm spring afternoon, a small gathering took place in Oakbrook Park, near the newly planted garden. Jessica, cradling Lily in her arms, stood surrounded by the people who had become her unexpected support system. Sarah and Mike, still in their paramedic uniforms, having just finished a shift, stood nearby. Detective Hartley, Margaret, and Dr. Chen completed the circle, with Toby sitting contentedly at Jessica's feet. As they stood there, the emotional weight of their shared journey hung in the air. Jessica, her eyes brimming with tears, spoke first. "I never thought I'd be here," she said, her voice soft but steady. "A few months ago I was lost, scared, and alone. I made a terrible mistake that night, but because of all of you, and especially you, Toby, my daughter and I have a second chance." She knelt down, allowing Lily to reach out and pat Toby's head. The dog's tail wagged gently, his eyes never leaving the baby's face. The simple interaction brought smiles to everyone's faces, a poignant reminder of the unlikely bond that had started it all. Mike nodded in agreement, adding with a grin, "And Toby here, well, he's taught us all a thing or two about heroism and second chances." Dr. Chen, who had been quietly observing, spoke up. "In my years of practice, I've seen many miracles of medicine. But what happened with Lily and Toby, it's reminded me that healing comes in many forms. The bond between them, the way this community came together, it's been truly extraordinary." Margaret, her eyes twinkling with grandmotherly affection, reached out to hold Lily's tiny hand. "Life has a funny way of bringing people together," she mused. "Who would have thought that a stray dog and an abandoned baby would create such a beautiful family?" As if on cue, Toby stood up and gently nuzzled Lily, eliciting a delighted giggle from the baby. The sound seemed to release something in the group, and soon they were all laughing, the joy of the moment overwhelming the memories of the difficult times they had endured. Jessica, looking around at the faces of those who had become her unexpected support system, felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. "Thank you," she said simply, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you all for showing me and Lily what true kindness and community looked like." As the sun began to set, casting a warm glow over the park, the group stood together, united by their shared experience and the bonds they had formed. In that moment, they weren't just individuals brought together by circumstance. They were a family, forged by compassion, bravery, and the unwavering loyalty of one extraordinary dog. As twilight descended on Oakbrook Park, the small group began to disperse, each carrying with them a renewed sense of purpose and connection. Jessica, with Lily securely in her arms and Toby faithfully by her side, walked towards Margaret's house, their new home filled with warmth and support. Detective Hartley returned to her precinct, determined to implement the changes that would make their community safer for all its members, especially those most vulnerable. As they parted ways, each person felt the impact of their shared journey. They had witnessed firsthand the power of compassion, the strength found in community, and the unexpected ways that hope can emerge from the darkest of circumstances. In the gentle evening breeze, the leaves of the newly planted garden rustled softly, as if whispering the story of Toby, the heroic stray who had brought them all together. It stood as a living testament to the idea that even the smallest acts of kindness can create ripples of change, touching lives in ways we might never have imagined. And as night fell over Oakbrook, the stars seemed to shine a little brighter, illuminating a community forever changed by the extraordinary events of that fateful autumn night. In the months that followed, Oakbrook continued to feel the positive effects of Toby's heroic act. The community's newfound unity led to various initiatives aimed at supporting vulnerable families and promoting animal welfare. Jessica, with the unwavering support of her newfound family, made significant strides in her personal and professional life, becoming an advocate for domestic violence survivors. 1 year later, on Lily's first birthday, the community gathered once again in Oakbrook Park. As Lily took her first wobbly steps towards Toby, who waited patiently with tail wagging, the assembled crowd cheered. It was a moment that symbolized not just Lily's growth, but the journey of healing and hope that the entire community had undergone together. Inspired by Toby's story? Remember, heroes come in all shapes and sizes. Consider adopting a rescue animal, volunteering at your local shelter, or supporting organizations that help vulnerable families. Every act of kindness, no matter how small, has the power to change lives. Together, we can create communities where compassion and support flourish, just like in Oakbrook.